Welcome to State of the Offense. Today we'll break down the quarterback situations in the NFC East and how it affects fantasy football. Three of the teams are locked into their starting quarterbacks in this division. We will start with the team that has the most uncertainty at the position, the Washington Commanders. Ron Rivera is back, but he now has former Kansas City offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy to run the offense in D.C. The coaching dynamic in Washington is very much a prove-it situation for both Rivera and Bieniemy. With new ownership, the Commanders are a prime candidate to make wholesale changes to the on-field leadership of the team. Ron Rivera is a proven, competent head coach, but he will have to finish better than fourth in the NFC East to stay in Washington. Eric Bieniemy took the job in Washington to be the offensive coordinator so he could prove that he's ready to be a head coach. Bieniemy has interviewed for numerous head coaching positions around the league, but he has not been able to secure a position yet. If he proves himself without the help of Andy Reid with the offense and the talent of a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, Bieniemy will certainly rise in stature as a head coaching candidate. The production of the quarterback position is the make or break factor for franchise success. To me, the decision by the Commanders to place Sam Howell at the top of the depth chart was a curious one. Howell was taken with the 144th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft as a fifth rounder. Howell was the sixth quarterback drafted in 2022 behind Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, and Bailey Zappi. Going into the 2021 college football season, Howell was talked about as a possible first or second round pick, but his final year at North Carolina crashed his draft stock. Howell was the Commanders' quarterback 3 behind Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke until Week 18. Howell got the start in the season finale and had below-average statistics, but it was a win against the Dallas Cowboys. In the game, Howell played 66 snaps and his analytics grade was a 67. He completed 11 of 19 passes for 169 yards, 1 touchdown passing, 1 interception. He rushed for 35 yards and he had a touchdown on the ground. His passer rating was 83.0 and his QBR was 46.4. On the plus side, he produced an 8.9 yards per attempt mark. We have not had any preseason action yet, so everything from Howell is based on practice and meetings. So his hold is not that strong over his backup, Jacoby Brissett. Last year, the Commanders started Carson Wentz for 7 games, then Taylor Heinicke for 9, and of course Howell for the 1 game against Dallas. We should fully expect Jacoby Brissett to start games at some point this year. Brissett started 11 games in Cleveland during the Deshaun Watson suspension. Brissett was steady but unspectacular in his time on the field. In 787 snaps played, he graded at a 73, better than Howell's 67. He completed 64% of his passes, which compares favorably to Howell's 57.9. He averaged 237 passing yards per game, which was better than Howell's 169. Now, Howell's 8.9 yards per attempt is something to watch, and it was better than Brissett's 7.1. Brissett's touchdown to interception ratio was 12-6. Howell was 1-1. Passer rating, Brissett 88.9, Howell 83.0. In QBR, Brissett had a 60, while Howell was at a 46.4. Besides the statistical advantages in almost every passing category, Brissett is also 30 years old. He's been in the league for 7 seasons. He's backed up Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Phillip Rivers. He was drafted higher than Howell as a rookie, so he's probably more physically gifted than Howell as well. Brissett is also getting paid $8 million this year. For 2 coaches who have to prove themselves to new ownership and the league in general, you have to imagine that the leash will be pretty short for Howell if he starts losing games. Ron Rivera benched Carson Wentz after a 1-4 start. He then benched Taylor Heinicke after a tie and 2 straight losses. Rivera and Bieniemy need to win or else. So I don't understand why they are putting their careers on the line with an unproven prospect who has shown very little in actual game action. When the season is over, I can easily see the Commanders starting Brissett more games than Howell. I think that we're looking at 3 games early from Howell tops. Yahoo rates Howell as their quarterback 26 and their 212th player overall. ESPN ranks Howell as their quarterback 30. He is not getting drafted. Brissett only averaged 16.6 fantasy points per game last year in a very run-heavy offense in Cleveland, which made him the quarterback 40. Neither guy is worth drafting at this point. I rate Howell as my quarterback 31, and Brissett as my quarterback 34. If Brissett wins the job, Brissett probably moves into the 31 or 32 quarterback range on my board. If you want to take a chance on Howell's upside potential, he can be taken in the last round of your draft. We know what Brissett will give us in fantasy, but we have the power of the unknown with Howell. He hasn't failed yet, so optimism about his potential is what is getting him a look both in Washington and in fantasy football. The second quarterback situation we will cover in the NFC East is the Giants. Daniel Jones played better under Brian Daboll than he had earlier in his career in other systems. After the 2021 season, the Giants declined Jones' fifth-year option, and he had a neck injury with only 11 games played. It wasn't looking good for Daniel Jones. He was entering training camp with competition from Tyrod Taylor. Everything started adding up for Jones between his own health, Brian Daboll's guidance, and the return of a healthy Saquon Barkley. His wide receivers and tight ends didn't do him any favors last year. Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, and Wan'Dale Robinson all missed the majority of the season, but with backups like Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton, Daniel Jones became a steady producer in New York. The most surprising element of Daniel Jones' production had to be his emergence as a dual-threat quarterback. In 38 games previously played in his first 3 seasons, Jones rushed for 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Last year alone, he rushed for 708 yards and 7 touchdowns. Where did this vanilla Vic come from? The Giants have been steadily building the receiving groups and the offensive line this year. The Giants added Paris Campbell and Jalen Hyatt to the wide receiver room, and they also traded for Darren Waller from Las Vegas. They drafted a center in the second round, too. The Giants backed up their financial commitment to Jones by giving him more weapons. All of this positive Daniel Jones energy has changed the fantasy football perception of Daniel Jones. In fantasy, he was quarterback 13 in points scored and the quarterback 18 in points per game. He's getting drafted as either the 13th or 14th quarterback overall as a 10th rounder. I place more importance on quarterbacks than any other position, so my overall ranking of Jones is higher than ADP. He's my 82nd player overall, which means that I grade him as a 7th rounder. On the flip side, Daniel Jones is only my quarterback 16, so I'm not getting him in mock drafts. Last year was filled with bad luck for Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. His injury in the first game against Tampa forced surgery and he was out for 5 games. Besides his own injury, he did not have his franchise left tackle Tyron Smith available until Week 15. Dak was accustomed to having Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb together in a strong 2021 season. He also had Michael Gallup for the first half of 21, and he had Dalton Schultz the whole year. There were very good reasons why Dak did not succeed in 2022 besides his own injury. Amari Cooper was in Cleveland. Michael Gallup was not 100% from his knee, and Dalton Schultz also missed 2 games. Most of these issues are either resolved or they have been addressed by the Cowboys front office. Smith is back at left tackle. Brandon Cooks was brought in from the Texans to be the deep threat opposite CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup is healthy again. A full year of experience by 2022 draftee Jalen Tolbert might help. Dak did lose one of his favorites with Schultz at tight end, but the Cowboys have 3 young tight ends who have solid futures ahead of them with Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, and second-round draft pick Luke Schoonmaker. In a down year, Dak was still the quarterback 10 in points per game. He is still a fantasy starter for you in an average year. Anytime a good quarterback gets an upgrade to his wide receivers and a strong left tackle protecting him, good results should follow. Dak is going as either the quarterback 9 or 10, and he's getting taken around the 7th round. I actually like Prescott more than his ADP. I rate Dak Prescott as my quarterback 7 and my 53rd overall player. In Philadelphia, the improvement of Jalen Hurts as a franchise quarterback and as a fantasy football quarterback continues. Hurts' productivity has gone up every year. His efficiency goes up every year. And most importantly for the Eagles, he's winning more games. Hurts is far and away the best quarterback in the NFC right now, both on the field and in fantasy football. He's always been productive on the ground, but his growth and the addition of A.J. Brown to Devonta Smith made Hurts a factor as a passer as well. Hurts was rewarded with a new 5-year contract, and he's still only 25 years old. Hurts finished as the quarterback 3 in points per game last year. Because he missed 2 games, he was the quarterback 4 in points scored. Yahoo rates Hurts as their quarterback 1, and I agree with them. Philadelphia's offense is trending up, and their defense is getting younger. The Eagles will probably find themselves in more high-scoring games, and they will have to depend on Jalen Hurts to win games for them. I also rate Hurts as my number 3 overall player on the board, because I believe that you always win with an elite quarterback, and you rarely win with running backs and wide receivers. The week-to-week consistency of a good quarterback stabilizes your roster, and if your quarterback can run, your floor is pretty high. The top 3 quarterbacks of Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen are dynamic and proven enough where they are pretty low risk. You want your first-round pick to be as sure a thing as you can make it. Running backs get injured more often than quarterbacks now. Wide receivers are too dependent on their quarterbacks to produce. What happens to Kupp if Stafford gets hurt? Or Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle if Tua has more concussions? It is a quarterback league, and fantasy football should reflect that as well. Most drafters who want an elite quarterback want to wait for the 2nd or 3rd round, and there's nothing wrong with that strategy. But once you get past the top 6 quarterbacks, your weekly points totals drop, and you become too dependent on running backs and wide receivers having to have big games. There is also value to quarterbacks who can produce more than 400 yards rushing and about 5 rushing touchdowns a year. The value added by these players is too good to pass up. What is the point of hoping that Travis Etienne will outproduce Tank Bigsby for the Jaguars when you can line up Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes right out the gate? Running backs and wide receivers come and go every year, but quarterbacks are the centerpieces of their franchises. Good offenses with good quarterbacks make good fantasy teams. If you like today's preview of the quarterbacks of the NFC East, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.